And I'm going to say good evening, everybody. My name is David Story. I am the Division C Director this year. I'm President of a club, VPE of a club. I am coach of a club. And I enjoy very much helping clubs with pathways and base camp because it's the education system that's here to stay, and it's not as scary as people think it is. All you need to do is get in there and practice. So first of all, I'm going to ask you that within base camp, does everybody know how base camp communicates with you in the club? No, eh? All right. So you know who your 3 base camp managers are in your club? They're done by position, not people. It's your president, your vice president of education, and your secretary are your base camp managers that have been put into place by base camp and Toastmasters, and whoever's elected into those positions on an annual basis also have the responsibility of being a base camp manager. Now, whenever something goes in and out of base camp, in order for it's the club contact that gets the email. So on the Toastmasters International website in Club Central, where you're putting your contact information for the club, that's the email that gets all of the stuff from base camp. So if it's not one of your president or vice president of education or secretary, those people are never going to know when one of your members have completed anything. So if you're not getting those emails, that's a possibility why. And allow me to show you, how many here, just to raise a hand, use Free Toast Host as their website for their club? Anyone? Yeah? Well, within Free Toast Host, I'm going to share my screen here. So this is my club website, and I log in as the club administrator, admin for the website, and I launch the admin console. So in there, it brings up this screen. And on this screen, I want to select my email and contacts. And I go to contacts, and you notice here, if you go down, it says check this to enable the contact for email address. So that will then set up a contact email address for your club. And if you notice up here, the contact us, I could put 3 positions. I put my president, my VPE, and I put my VPM in there as opposed to my secretary because it's still a contact. And I want my VPM to get all those contacts and respond to those people saying, yes, absolutely, come on out to my club. So those are the 3 people that I chose to put in to those emails. So now when anybody has a completion in base camp, 2 of these are base camp managers. So I know at least 2 of my BCMs in my club are getting these because I then take this contact name, contact dash my club, and I put that in as the contact for the club in Club Central. That is one of the ways that you can go about ensuring that you're going to get the emails from your members when they have completions. Does that make sense to everybody? Perfect. All right, I'm going to stop that share right now. So my aim tonight is to give you an overview of the most often used portions of base camp. And the goal is to make you functional in the position because it's the only way you're going to go beyond that point is you actually getting in and using the software on your own. So let's get right into it. So in order to access base camp, you must log in to the Toastmasters International website. All right, so this is your login screen. When you've logged in, you know you've logged in successfully because it'll say welcome in your name. It'd be kind of weird if everybody said welcome, David. All right, to access pathways now or to get into it, there's 2 ways. The first way that we're accustomed to is actually clicking on pathways with the pull down, and then you go to base camp, correct? Everybody remember that? Well, now if you just click on your welcome, right, it brings you to this screen. And can everybody see over here to the right? Can you see the whole third box? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because right now I have everybody's on the right hand side. You guys are all lined up on my right, and I can't see all the way over there. So in here, you have your choose a path, and we're not going to do any of those tonight. The navigator. So you want to go in as a Basecamp manager. So if you just went here and clicked whatever club you want and press go, you'd be going into your personal path. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Now, as a Basecamp manager, if you're like Tekla and I, and you belong to several clubs, you must remember the first thing you need to do is select that club that you're going to go in and do the Basecamp managing for. So I'm going to change from my home club of Selkirk to West Winners. And I'm going to log in as Basecamp manager, and I'm going to click go. So, and now we have this box, like I said, comes up for everybody. Now from here, I would encourage you, view the Basecamp Manager overview tutorials. The tutorials in here are utterly fantastic. So when you're done with tonight and you get an opportunity to go through those tutorials, it's very, very thorough. And to be quite honest, I've already done it, and I learned a ton of things going through there, as well as talking with my peers, Tekla, Lloyd, and just not being afraid to go in and press buttons and seeing where it would take me, because that's always a good way to learn too. So let's talk about pending requests. So here your members are going to complete something, or they're going to have an educational, and they're going to send you a request. And if your email is set up, your contact email is set up like I showed you at the beginning, you're going to get an email saying a member has completed, right?
Yeah.
Something, and it's requiring you to go in and approve it. So here I have two members out of West Winners Club that I'm the Vice President of Education for, and they have completions. And it tells me what dates they've completed them on and everything else, what level of completion and what path. So I keep a record while I'm in there as a VPE. You know how we used to keep old school with the old path where we had just have a list on the wall, the chart where you go up and you say, yes, this person's done that. I do the same thing now in an Excel spreadsheet for my clubs. So you can still do that. It works great. That way, when someone's doing a speech, I pull that out and I open it and I say, okay, Tekla's doing her third speech out of level 4. And I check that off that night when she's done it. And that way I've got a track so that when I get these, I can compare them and I can say, yep, they actually did complete it, because sometimes in there people may accidentally complete it and they really didn't. It's true. I've had it happen. So once you get past all that and you've confirmed it's completed, you can approve it by pressing the button. And then you can put anything you want in here, right? I'll say congratulations.
Okay, David, how did that date got in there?
So the member themselves were in their path, and they did a completion. So they've completed all of the projects in their level 2 in this particular case. So it got down to the bottom and it said where you click on the completion, and then it'll say pending approval from your Basecamp manager. So it's pending this process. So then when we go back in, the member goes back into their path, they'll see that that path is now 100% complete. Right? And the big change in pathways now for members is they no longer have to wait. Like once they start, they can do any project in any order they want. The only stipulation in pathways is you must complete all the levels in order. You must complete level 1 before level 2, before level 3.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? But you can, like the old manual system where you can pull out the effective speaking manual and say, well, I like that speech for what I want to do, or one of your other manuals, and you can go all over the place. That freedom is there now for your members. So that makes it a little bit more complicated as a Basecamp manager, because now you're not doing everything in order, right? To follow, you have to keep track now, because your members will do this speech or this speech or this speech. And if they're like myself, I have 3 active paths running right now. Tekla, I bet you have more. But that's, no, just 2? Okay. 3. See, there you go. But for some of your more advanced speakers in your clubs, this is what you're going to run into. So you have to keep track of that as you go through. So does everybody understand what I've done thus far?
So far.
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
So did you make that Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I made that myself.
Is that something that we would have access to, or is that like a template, or?
It is a template, and I know I've sent it to the district, and I know I've got it saved on my work computer. Shelly, email me saying, Dave, can you send me that? And I will send it to you.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so now you just, once you've completed all your approvals, you simply go back, and it brings you back to this screen again. So I'm done my approvals. I want to see the progress now of my members. So I'm going to click on this. And this is where all your screens come up, and it could be a little daunting for people at first until you actually know what you're looking at. All right. Let's start at the top with individuals progress. Now up here on the right, there's an options. You can refresh all of them by going refresh.
Okay.
And also within each of the boxes themselves, they have the same thing where you can go refresh. Now what I'm looking at here is level 1 projects in progress. All right. So this here is not necessarily the amount of people, it's the amount of projects. So if you click then on this view details, it'll show you a list of members and who's completed what projects. So when I pull that down for my club, I've completed these projects twice. Lloyd has completed these projects 3 times. So these numbers down here on the bottom, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, are not people, they are projects.
Okay.
Okay. So you can go down and you can continue down, and it'll go into level 2 projects if you scroll down more, and level 3 and level 4 and level 5, right? So these are all the projects done by members in our club. Now, do you remember how when we first went into Basecamp, I said you have to pick your club that you want to look at as Basecamp manager?
Yeah.
The thing that bugs me the most about Pathways is, for example, Lloyd may set his club to one of his other home clubs. If I go in here when Lloyd's got his home club set somewhere else, I see nothing of Lloyd. It's like he doesn't exist in our club. So the only time I see Lloyd is when he's got West Winners set as his home club. And that's a little frustrating, but I understand why Toastmasters does that.
Why?
But I hope that eventually, well, in the beginning, it was just easier to track when you were doing awards and everything else. And I don't know, maybe Tekla has a better answer to this than I do, but I just find it so frustrating. I don't care who you are. As far as I'm concerned, the path belongs to the person, not the club. So they should be, right? Any Basecamp manager should be able to look at what I'm completing. I don't know why they're still doing it this way. I think it's a little archaic and confusing, because if you have members that are, like I say, belong to several clubs, and you have 2 or 3 of those within your clubs, then you have to call them and say, hey, can you make our club your home club so I can go in and do this?
Okay.
Right? So if you're not seeing your member and they're saying, hey, nobody's approved my level 2 completion yet, call them and say, well, make our club your home club so I can go in and do that. That's the reason I'm bringing that up, is because you're going to scratch your head one night and say, where did they go? I can't find them in Basecamp. Okay, so now you know. So does this make sense? You could see what projects are in progress on that screen, and it's projects, not people. In here, it'll show you the same type of graphs with completions, right? Who's completed levels. And let me refresh that, and I'll know it's refreshing because I could see the refresh now little window going right here. Sometimes these take a little bit to pull up. You just have to be patient, especially right now when TI is trying to enter everything as far as dues and completions. It's a busy time right now for the end of the due cycle for Toastmasters International. Now, if you notice, and I like here, when people complete levels, they also put a reminder in here, which they did not have initially. When you approve something in here like we did initially in that members, when I had 2 completions to approve, it's approving it in Basecamp. Pathways is satisfied. You must also go into Club Central and put it in there so that it shows up in your distinguished club program. It doesn't automatically link over. It's 2 separate things that you need to do for every completion. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here you could see, now that we're back.
Could I ask a question?
You certainly may.
Where's Club Central?
On Toastmasters International website. We'll go there after,
okay,
and I'll show you.
Okay.
Right? But I'd like to get through everything on here
Okay.
first, and we'll go back. So here you can see Lloyd Willem has completed, right, 3 level completions. Daniel McCall has a level completion. Craig Sweet has a level completion. You can look up the progress for each member, same type of thing. And I just want you to play with these and see what the different things are and what they're telling you. So obviously completions, this is path progress as opposed to individual progress. So this is how many people in this path type of a thing as opposed to the other one. So in here, dynamic leadership, for example, I have 3 people in the dynamic leadership path.
Oh, it says 3, yeah.
Right? That it's in progress. You see the red's in progress. You also see a blue one here saying I've got 1 completed visionary communication. Right? That's Lloyd's. He completed his 5 levels in his, so he's completely done that path. So that tells me, if I added all those numbers up, that tells me how many active paths I have in my club as far as people that are working on speeches. Does that make sense?
Yeah, David, it's Joyce. I would just say it was only in the last week that I discovered this in Basecamp. I think before, because our VP of Eds looked after the completions, I thought I didn't have a need to go in there. So I sort of tripped over it, and I was just doing exactly what you were, working my way through these different reports. I thought there was no way to find out from an executive perspective where people were in their paths. I thought this was excellent, right? It's not perfect, but it was so good to...
I'm going to show you something after this that's going to blow your socks off.
Okay. I did find what I was able to do is go through, and just based on knowing where the members were and what they were doing, I could tell that some of them didn't actually, I knew they were done, say their icebreaker, but it still said in progress. So then I could go to them and say, you need to follow through and complete that project so it can be recorded as such. So it did help me clean up a few things in there that I saw weren't quite right.
Right. And if you're like me and you have people say, well, I want to do a speech, and I use this resource because I can't keep track of my 17 people in Selkirk and 12 people over in this club and saying, well, which path are you in? So this is a good resource. I actually
Yes.
go into Basecamp Manager where I can see, well, what path are they on? Right. And then I can set it up in
Yeah.
FreeToast host and pull downs. And
the
so
other
that's
interesting thing is too, David,
interesting.
it doesn't show you if they've never registered for a path or maybe they've registered but never started. So it was great
Right,
information.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that one because there's another way that I'm going to show you that makes it even more personal to your member. And yes, Tekla, I see you.
I was going to ask you, so now when we're looking into Basecamp and we're on this screen, can you get details? Can I view details and
Yes,
see?
and
Yeah.
that's what came up. I tried to do that, but that was coming up as a blank screen to you guys. You couldn't see
Oh,
it because it was a pop-up window.
oh,
I
okay.
tried
So,
to do it, but nobody
okay,
saw it. So yes,
okay,
if you go on this little button here on each one and you go view details, it'll open up something else that you could see that gives you more information about your members and that particular items that you're looking at, right? For here, we have 12 members in the club and all of them are doing the online version,
Oh,
right?
wow.
If someone was doing the paper one, it would say on here that they're ordered the paper path, right? Where they're paying the extra 25 bucks a path US or whatever it is. So it tells you how they're getting their paths as well. External training, I know I have nobody there that's requested it, so nothing is going to show up. But that's how you play in there.
And
Does
I
that
do
all
like
make
you
sense?
can also, oh, sorry, David, I do like that you can also export it to an Excel spreadsheet if you're familiar with that. And all the
Yes,
data is there and all the columns and you can play
yes,
with
you
it.
can. Now here's the best part that I like about all of this. I can go up to this search here. Does everybody see where I am?
Yeah.
And if my system settles down and allows me to type something in, just give me a second here. I could type in somebody's name and I can go search them. Right now, it's not allowing me to do that. So I type in their name there and it'll come down and it'll say something. So let me just refresh here and see if this takes effect and allows me to
I
do what
still
I
not
want to
seen
do.
that refresh button.
You haven't seen the refresh button?
No, I haven't.
Well, I'm using the web browser as a refresh, but also in the pull downs, there's an arrow and you can search for that. Global search. Oh, that's a different one. All right, so let me go home again and give it a second to do what it needs to do. It's responding.
It's doing something.
Yeah, all right, I'm gonna go back to the main screen. I can go up here and I could type in a person's name. And it's not gonna let me just because I'm saying. I was doing this as the Basecamp manager earlier. Anyways, you can type in their name and it'll have a pull down when it finds them and you can click on them, and as soon as that happens, it's going to take you to a screen with their, it'll take you to this screen, right? It'll take you to this screen, but this will be for a particular user. Right now it's for my club itself.
Okay.
Right? So I wanted to mostly just explain what these 4 areas here were about. All right. So the Basecamp profile, every individual has a profile, and it's going to list their interest and additional information when they were a member, credentials, if they're a DTM or if they're a past international director, if they have a Pathways mentor, when they've done the rules. Everybody see that? And right now it's blank because it's the Basecamp manager, not an individual. People keep saying, hey, David, how do I fill in roles like we used to under the communication leadership? Right, your CLs and ALs. In the top corner, there's a gear. My account. You click on my account, and guess what's going to come up? Ah, look at that. A spot where you can actually go in and add the dates where you've done them in the club.
Oh, okay. Oh, so that's where the dates come in.
Yes.
Ha ha ha.
So if the members do this, they go in there, they click on that wheel, the gear where it says my account.
All right.
They can go in and add these in. Now,
And
Tekla,
that is,
I haven't seen where this actually comes and becomes a value yet. Have you run across that? So maybe you can explain it a little better. Please go ahead.
Okay, it's important when you get to level 3. When you get to level 3, you have to have put in your details on when you've been an R-counter, when you've been a Toastmaster. What I do, I update it as I go along now because I'm at those levels. I update it to make sure. One way to find out is through Free Toast Host. I call up my list of all the roles I have done from each of my clubs, and I go in and put a Toastmaster, grammarian, whatever I've done. So it keeps
Right.
it.
Perfect. It's very simple, and the individuals teach them how to do that themselves, right? So now I'm going back to the screen here for Basecamp profile, and this, like I say, once you type the person's name up here, you can go in. I don't know why it's not letting me do that tonight. It lets me do it all the other times. Transcript. If you search the name and you're on that person's name, and it would say that person's name right here where it says Club 009330. It would say who they are, and you click on transcript, it takes you to their Basecamp. All right, so it's like
David, did you try clicking on view team, that little box there?
where
Right.
No, that's
And then you
all
can
it is.
pick a person.
Okay, that would be a different way
And
of
then-
doing it. Let me see if that works. Okay, so yeah, okay, let's use, thank you very much. I forgot that option was there. So now, see, I learned something too, right? So here we have Lloyd up, and you can see Lloyd's done a bunch of things. Lloyd's fill in those positions, and when he was an counter, an evaluator, and everything else, right? Watch this. If I click on transcript, I'm actually pulling up Lloyd's transcript. I can open up any of the path that he's in his curriculum and see where he's at. All right. What's Lloyd doing in engaging humor? Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any danger to doing that you might move them ahead? Like you're not really in it, are you? You're just viewing it?
I have not tried to complete something as the Basecamp manager for someone. I am very careful about that. But if you do happen to, just communicate with your member and say,
No,
I was looking, but.
Basecamp won't let you do that.
Yeah.
They won't let you do that. Yes, they will say you're not allowed or something like that. I'm not sure exact words.
Yeah.
There are some things you cannot view in there. You can view just about everything, but certain things, yeah.
Right.
So you cannot accidentally finish it for them.
Now, why I like this screen and where this becomes important for you, well, I know Lloyd's completed level 4, so I'm going to click on View Details. Look what comes up. View Certificate. So I can view Lloyd's certificate, and because it's a pop-up window, you may not be able to see it, but it'll come as a pop-up window. I can save it as a PDF, print it, bring it in, and present it to him. As long as there's a 100% path completion or level completion, you can go in and look at that member's certificate and print it out. That's one of the big questions Basecamp managers asks is, how do I get to their certificate and print it out so we can present it to them? Is everybody following me so far?
so far.
Excellent. So now you can actually just play around and go between the different levels of what Lloyd's doing. And if I want to go back and forth, I can click up here where it says Lloyd Gwillem Educational Transcript. I'm going to go back to his transcript and I can go into a different path and look at that if I want. But on the onset, I look at this and I see, okay, Lloyd's working in 3 different paths right now. And his DTM project, well, actually 2 paths, presentation mastery, engaging humor. His DTM project, and he's doing the Pathways Mentoring Program, which is a separate thing altogether outside of the paths. So I could see exactly where the members are. Now, the one thing, because I keep that record, you may find that sometimes the member will do a speech, but they don't go into Basecamp and update it and complete it. You sometimes
right.
have to remind them and say, hey, can you go on the computer and complete that in Basecamp? So, right? Those are the little things that you may have to communicate with your members to get that working. Is everybody following everything so far? Right? And it's just a matter of practice going in and doing that and being able to look at the members, and it works very, very well. Now, has anybody gone into the ePortfolio and feedback sections and played in there? Let's go to feedback first. In here, any member of the club can give Lloyd feedback. So as you can see, I was in here yesterday. Lloyd gives a great speech. I can go in there and say, hey, Lloyd, thank you for giving such a great speech. And if you notice under that share my feedback, there's feedback and there's badges. I can actually assign badges. Now, for the up and coming generation who are used to getting badges in online gaming and stuff like that, this is a big deal to them, right? They're getting badges for this. They're getting because it is a form of recognition. For some of our other members who never had this before, they're not as excited about it as some of our younger members are, but don't neglect the members. Know your audience, and if they like that type of thing, go in and say, hey, great speech, especially for your new members, and they get that, they're like, ooh, somebody recognized me, right? So it's just another form of recognition for your members. That's what that is. And it works. Electronic portfolio. I akin this to your filing cabinet where you can store everything. Now in here,
Okay.
remember they were saying that you can upload your evaluations into Pathways?
Mm-hmm.
This is where the member would do it.
Okay.
Okay, they can go to Documents and they can click on that, and then here they can upload the document. If it's the member, I can search, right? And that way I can see. But Lloyd just has a box and he takes his written and he shoves them in the box when he's completed instead of using the electronic portfolio. I don't know too many people who do utilize the e-portfolio, but it is there as an option if people get their evaluations electronically. They can save them in Pathways. Does that make sense to everybody?
It makes sense now. Just now.
Just now. All right. Let me think here. Is there anything else that I wanted to cover? Because those are the big things about being a Basecamp manager that you're going to look at the most. Printing certificates, finding out where they are, doing completions, show them how to upload documents if they want to, how to give the recognition and badges.
So a question, so basically as a Basecamp managers, we get those requests, and in order for them to complete, we have to say that it's done.
Correct.
And input that.
As soon as you click on the button approved,
Yeah.
right? Basecamp will send the member an email, or should, saying it's been approved, right?
Okay.
And then they can go back into their project and they should see and they should be able to complete it. And then at that point, their certificate is available for printing because they'll be at 100% complete.
And that only happens once the whole, like each level is completed?
Correct, because each
There's
level has
sections
multiple
to the
speeches,
level,
right?
Yeah,
Each project has multiple speeches. They must complete all the speeches within that level,
okay.
right?
And I have another question about logistics. Do you usually have only one person in the club that is dealing with that, the actual doing the management of that, or even though there's 3 people that are eligible to do it, how does that work?
Well, that's up to the club to decide. Do you have an active VPE, or is your president more active? That's your base camp managers talk, say, hey, you know, Shelley, you're a base camp manager. I'm going to be going on vacation for 3 weeks. Would you mind looking out for base camp for me
Yeah,
while I'm gone? And as long as the members are picking it up and doing it on behalf of the membership, there's not going to be a problem. The problem is when people say, I've submitted something 3 weeks ago and it's not approved yet. That's when there's a problem.
yeah.
So make sure as an executive in your clubs that you're on top of these things and your members get these things back quickly.
Thank you.
You know, this is June. I'm talking about UM Masters. We
Yeah.
have students, strictly students, and the VP of Education and the VP of Membership and the VP of Public Relations. Both of them vanished at the same time.
Right? So you lost one base camp manager as the VP of Education. The other
That's
two,
right.
although they're executives, aren't base camp managers. So you
They're
still
not.
had your president and your secretary who were
Secretary
base
to be
camp
base camp
managers.
manager. Okay, so the secretary, she's also a student and I can't find her. So I have no one. So I have to do it all.
Yeah.
Now, can I get my director to help?
The easiest way is for you as a club, if you've lost a member, have an election to replace that person, but input that name into Toastmasters as that person being in that position.
Yeah.
Right? So once that's done, that person then becomes the base camp manager because they hold that position. That's how base camp pathways knows, is because you've entered your executive into
Into the, yes.
TI, right? So as long as you're putting your replacement into TI, then base camp will recognize that base camp manager from one of those 3 newly entered positions. It's like what we're going to have to go through very soon with our elections. We send that report to TI of who's going to be our new presidents and all of that. And when July 1st rolls around, they become the new base camp managers.
Okay.
Right? Yes, Jack, I see you.
I had a question about that. When you export to the Excel file thing,
Yeah.
and it was mentioned, but this is a separate file then you keep on your computer then?
Yeah, it'll export it.
Sort of like the other Excel file that you maintain,
right?
On personal data, I guess you would say.
Yeah. So right here, when you're in any of these 6 areas for the members' paths, and you go within the box. So right here, I'm in the box, the small box, and I have that pull down in that view details, export to Excel. So I can export all of this data into an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
So I can look at it without having to go into Basecamp. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's just another way to track things.
Yeah. So it'll save it as a snapshot of where your club is at this second.
Okay.
Because this could change when someone chooses another path or completes some more projects, right? So it's a fluid thing. It's always changing.
Okay.
Good question, though, Jack. Any other questions?
I'm pretty sure you're going to show this, David. I was wondering, so once you've approved the 2 educationals you did,
yes,
it's not, how do you go and put it into Club Central?
Yes, I was going to close out of here and actually go into that.
I knew you were.
Okay, somebody's sending a
I
chat.
just have one other question in terms of people having suggestions for how you track things. In the past, things were all about, especially on the communication side, about speeches. How many speeches, how many speeches? And now we know that within a project, it doesn't equate to, 3 projects equal 3 speeches, because we know in project 2 and level 1, there's 2 speeches and 2 things.
Right.
And so I'm just kind of wondering, when you have your chart and your ticky box of things,
Mine breaks it out.
it breaks it out
Mine breaks it out. Yeah,
into all the separate pieces within a project.
correct.
Okay, well, I'll be emailing you because I'll be excited to see how you do that.
And if I send it to you partially populated, just delete the stuff
Yeah,
and put,
I will.
at least you'll see how it's being used. I don't think I have it on this computer. I think it's on my work computer.
Yeah,
And-
good. If someone's done it as an idea how to track,
Yeah.
because these are great reports and you can dump all this into Excel, but it doesn't equate to the number of speeches done.
That's correct.
Just a full project completion. So.
That's correct. So
All right, thank
because we're in a space that's not our own as a club, I can't hang it up on the wall and leave it there.
Yeah.
So I use a little folder with the sheets and I can just tick, tick, tick off as I go along. All right, so as Tekla said, the next thing that we're going to do is actually, now that we've completed, I'm going to show you where in Basecamp within TI that you go in to actually submit stuff into Club Central. And that's the last portion of what I'm going to show you today. So when you're done in here, I always go back to the Pathways Start. And from here, I can go into Leadership Central.
And then Club Central.
And then Club Central, exactly.
Okay.
And then in this particular case, the members were from West Winners. Okay, and I go to Submit Educational Awards. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see it once I pull down the names or not, but I'm going to select a member, and I know one of them was Craig Sweet. And it'll pull up, and it'll say, okay, what's Craig got? And it's, now do you see the pull down, what's in the pull down? You guys see all of this stuff here?
Mm-hmm.
Is level 1, online dynamic leadership,
Yes.
right? I can click on that, and that in turn, once this is done, only when this is done, will it be reflected in the Distinguished Club program for the club.
Yeah. That's when it goes to TI, to Toastmaster International, right?
Correct, because I'm actually on the TI website.
Yeah.
And that's basically the last step, especially with completions you want to do, is make sure that that goes in there for your DCPs. Any questions on that?
So that one, I picked up that one from the beginning.
Perfect. All right. And that's about all that I really wanted to show you in Basecamp tonight, because that'll take care of 80% of the things that you're going to do within Basecamp, and the other 20% you can play around. And if you can't figure it out, give one of us that are doing these tutorials a call, and we'll be more than happy to help you out. So I thank you for coming tonight. I hope you learned something, and we'll be talking together again soon.